You're gonna mute it. All right. Just some pretty breaking development news. We just found out that, shocker, the United States Army has just awarded Constellation Network, and you can see I've got the contract here pulled up. Despite what Charles says, the government is actually using this network, and they were just awarded. You can see here the contract was awarded on September 16th of this year, 2024, and it was awarded to Constellation Network. And they were awarded, let's see if I can find the dollar amount on here. It was like $500,000. And what it was awarded for was the Army Museum Enterprises. And what they're doing is they're using the door traffic miners, the DTMs. So the DTMs, for those of you who aren't too familiar with what the DTM is, it tracks foot traffic. And so the Army is using this as a digital dashboard for these museums. And while that might not seem like that big of a deal, I mean, you know, it can be used outside of that. I mean, the door traffic miner is a device that can be applied to lots of different, applications. But this is a pretty big deal, I think. I mean, yeah, right here. So where is it? I want to find the exact dollar amount. And this was just discovered today. Okay, here we go. $539,211. And the contract is available until 2027. And so they're going to be using these DTMs at a minimum until next year. So it began September 16th of this year, and it goes through September 15th of 2025 with 2-year available option through September 2027. And before anybody says, it's not that big of a deal. And, I can tell you that it's more than just DTMs. Let me pull up Telegram real quick. So those of you that have been following along, the government isn't just interested in DTMs and door devices. Diggles, the co-founder and CSO, he's the guy that's principally involved in all of the things that are going on with the federal space. So on August 13th, he jumped in to my federal section of Telegram and he updated everybody. He said, and I'll just read off of this. Okay, so I wanted to share some insights and details on this meeting this week, and it was a big deal. We had a meeting with the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, who personally reached out for a, quote, meeting the team to get an update on the progress to support briefings on base. Well, look, if you think that they were flown out to a base to talk about door DTMs, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, because that this has nothing to do with it. This had everything to do with their Iron Spider. So Iron Spider is essentially a blockchain kit that they built specifically for the federal government. And it's an application that can be used by multiple different departments within the Department of Defense. The use case that got them the foot in the door, so to speak, was leveraging this distributed ledger technology for US Transcom. So they built a network for US Transcom, and specifically the Civil Reserve Air Fleet. And the Civil Reserve Air Fleet actually bids for contracts. So let's say they needed an airlift to help people out, getting people out of wherever. So instead of sending in a bunch of Air Force jets, they can send in, like United Airlines, FedEx, UPS, just all these civilian aircraft to help with that. Also, there's clandestine operations. If you're going to try to sneak in Navy SEALs into a hostile country, you're not going to fly in a U.S. Air Force jet, right? You're going to use under the cover of something like FedEx, who flies all around the world every day delivering packages. So maybe on this particular day, the package they're delivering is super secret squirrel stuff. I mean, we don't know, but these people bid on them, and so what they did is they built a distributed ledger for them, a technology, and showed that they could do this on an immutable ledger that was unhackable. And that's the other thing about this network, is they're quantum resistant. So this is a pretty big deal. And I've covered this topic pretty extensively for a lot of years. I've tried to show and highlight things like this to people to show that there's something bigger under the surface that is going to bubble up eventually. And today we saw that. Today we saw them being awarded $500,000, and I think that is just the tip of the iceberg. Benjamin Jorgensen, the CEO, it was a couple of weeks ago, he said that they had $50 million in the federal pipeline. Yeah, $50 million. So this is just a piece of that pipeline. I've also pointed out, let me stop sharing this screen, and let me bring up the other thing that I've brought up many times before, is the National DigiFoundry. So the National DigiFoundry, again, for a lot of those people that aren't really aware, even this is a distributed ledger technology that's built on top of Constellation's technology. This whole thing is a DAO, and you have different members in this DAO, all utilizing Constellation's technology. Here's the structure of the working group, how they get the fundings, and they vote on stuff. And yes, every single member in here, that means somebody from the US Treasury Department, somebody from the National Science Foundation, somebody from NASA, somebody from Space Force, they're all holding NDT tokens, and it's all sitting in a Stargazer wallet. And this can clearly be seen by clicking on any one of these working groups. So I'm going to click on the Space Working Group, which, again, I've pointed out many times before, that this address that you're seeing right here, this isn't a Bitcoin address. This isn't a Solana address. This is a Constellation DAG address. And, all of this stuff is running right now. This technology is being used, Charles, right now. Right now, they have stuff in space validating and verifying information. Just because it's not publicly available and seen doesn't mean that it's not happening. And I believe for Charles out there who doubted this, I think the team extended an offer for him that they could show this to him. But this is a big deal. I mean, all of this stuff is happening. I believe a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was about a month ago, I had a stream where I showed the transportation demo that they showed the Department of Defense in conjunction with people like the FAA. Remember back in May, Diggles was up in DC talking about GPS spoofing. And so I showed the demo, the real-time transportation demo that they showed these people, where they have proven to the government that they could secure GPS signals. And as we know, we've seen in the news, I've talked about it many, many times, how spoofing and hacking of these networks has already come, into attacks. I mean, it's happening all over the place, and it's a big deal. The government is literally spending billions of dollars to work on an alternative to GPS, because right now almost anybody can just buy off the market shelf stuff to jam and spoof GPS signals. I mean, it's pretty easy to do. So you need to be able to secure your network, because it's going to be a bad day when somebody starts spoofing and jamming the GPS signals over civilian air traffic. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to jump in here with anything, Brad, but like this to me is a pretty big deal. I mean,
first of all, it is a big deal. Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me on again, man. You're doing so much to help all of us. And I know there's, honestly, if I were to just speak from the heart right now, I mean, the whole crypto ecosystem right now is just in waiting, in limbo, and there's just FUD going around in different ecosystems and etc. But one thing I wanted to mention, it's hard to really go too much deeper, because you did an excellent covering there. But like, if you dive back, it's been over 5 years now, was the first SBIR, right? And first we heard SBIR FUD, right? Oh, it's just an SBIR. And then the second round SBIR, it's just an SBIR. But what that was, going all the way back to 2019, was them understanding the needs of the government, and things like beating China, right? And that's one thing we hear a lot. Like, if you watch these congressional testimonies and whatnot, they know that they need to beat China and or any other larger state-run actors, right, to secure communications, so they don't know what we're up to, if nothing else, right? Stopping them hacking into our systems, and then another thing too is even looking at space, because you had that image you were talking about, 𝗂𝗲𝗄𝗏 there, and what he's working on with everything there too. It's like I hope that there's, because I don't know things, right? Like, I don't know these things for a fact, but I hope and assume that there's, something larger being built. And I feel like national security comes into play, right? So there's a lot of things we don't know about. But clearly they want to make interoperable ability for satellites to A, not run into each other, B, if it's our satellite, we want to get what's coming off of that camera or communication, and not you, like securing pieces of it. And so my point is, we've had a network working with SBIRs, maybe even potentially, this is just a potential, I'm not saying I don't know anything, but it almost seems like there was a small gear shift that was maybe implemented to appease the actual needs of their largest customer, put it that way. So yeah, just like you said, I see this door as, it's just $500,000, but that contract right there is proving that, hey, it's almost like, consider it like a test net, right? Like, and they've already, this is not the first one. I think there was one in 2023 or 2022 or something with the door that was pretty small too. So they're carrying this on. This is like a carryover business. But I think it's just the beginning, because it's using the network, and it's priming the network, right? And it's, and we're seeing the different steps being taken. So yeah, I think this is really cool. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, here's Dr. David Beck of the U.S. Space Force at the National DigiFoundry, just talking about all the things that the Space Force is actually doing for day-to-day civilian stuff that people might not even be aware of. And yeah, I mean, some of the things that they're testing out, again, I've highlighted this, many times, but this is just specifically the space working group. They're talking about enhanced GPS accuracy with AI. Again, I mean, this is something that they have proven to the government, since the very beginning, since 2019, that they could secure GPS stuff. And again, securing and trustworthy GPS data, right? And then also on here, you have autonomous navigation in space. Because right now, right now in space, you have these little satellites going around to other little satellites. And you have them wanting to be able to test like refueling of satellites. They're also testing out space manufacturing and supply chain management, resource management, and
yeah, and a
again,
lot of
AI.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, a lot of that, you need that autonomous, you need that AI working behind the scenes, and you got to have it secured. You got to know what it's doing, how it's thinking, what decisions it's going to make, and why. So yeah, right with you.
Yeah, and in order to do all of this, you're going to need blockchain is going to be that crucial missing piece, right? You're not going to have AI and automation without blockchain. It's just you're not going to do it, because you want to make sure that your systems are immutable, that there's no way that your model has been tampered or messed with, right? But the other thing is, not a lot of these networks can manage data at scale. So that's another reason why this network was chosen over many, many other networks. It's because they can manage data at scale. And a lot of that has to do with the structure of the network. It's a directed acyclic graph. So as more nodes go on the system, the bigger and faster it actually gets. The other advantage of this network, as opposed to many other networks, and it was actually a requirement by the federal government, is you had to be able to use your existing legacy systems. These people, they have systems that work and are trusted, and they're not going to, update and their missile systems on something that they don't necessarily know may or may not work. They want to be able to use the system that has already worked for them for decades. And so a lot of these systems are old, but they work. And so it's being able to use your existing infrastructure, but just add that additional security component to it. And this can be applied to anybody, not just, I talk an awful lot about the Department of Defense and the federal stuff, but this is just like the proving ground, the testing network for this application. The internet itself started out as a federal government funded thing, right? And so this same type of use case and application can be scaled out and used by anybody. You can get the same level of trusted security application that the Department of Defense has already validated as a secure and scalable blockchain network, and you can use that for your own network. You can use that. I talked the other day to that guy Bob Hamill with the Auto token, right? He's a startup. He can do that. Panasonic. I don't think it's a big secret now that Panasonic is partnered with Constellation in some way, shape, or form, right? But Panasonic isn't going to partner up with somebody that may or may not be a trusted, scalable network. You're not going to run your business on something that can't stay up, right? You know, and you're not going to run your business operation with a network that consistently inflates the data and lies about its user base and you know, things like that, right? And so I think moving forward, you know, you're going to see more and more of this stuff percolating up to the top, where it's going to be almost a requirement from people to be able to show and validate all of the things that you say that you're doing.
Yeah, one thing I'm starting to see too is, you know, it's like you start to see the like the complaints of, you know, hey, there's no utility, you know. But first of all, we're starting to see the beginnings of utility, you know, hitting the door token, you know, that way, for one. But the other side of the coin is right now. Right now are the words, like, so maybe that's accurate, right? But if you look at 50 million in the pipeline, in theory, and you look at what's possible with the token to drive incentives for data sharing, the communication, the node hosting, there's a lot of utility yet to be pulled out of the DAG token, and I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, and you know, Diggles himself said that at High Def he was going to, you know, explain exactly how the token applies to, you know, something like this. So, you know, this is, you know, I think in an important press release too that I was, you know, possibly going to make a video about. It just, I kind of shied away from a lot of this stuff because it doesn't seem like a lot of people are really interested in some of this stuff, even though I keep coming up like weeks or months later saying, look, I fucking told you, but you're not paying attention. And this actually comes back to last year, a post that I made about the NDAA, right? The National Defense Authorization Act. And so this came up just this Monday, September 30th, 2024. So to circle back, you know, I read through the National Defense Authorization Act that President Biden signed into law last December. And it went into great detail on all these different ways that the technology that Constellation has already been providing to the federal government could be applied. And what was really interesting, and I tried to tell people, is in that National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, it was like, you know, almost $1 billion was released. The only way that these departments were able to get a piece of that pie, and it was all time critical. A lot of it was like within like 120 days. These departments had to show that they had a viable working solution for whatever it was to get a piece of this, you know, close to $1 billion that they were unlocking. And Constellation fit the bill for almost everything. And I told everybody in May, I said, you know what? I bet you anything we're going to hear something within that 120 days. And then sure as shit, in May, Diggles was at Consensus and he had that interview and he was like, you could, he was beaming. He was like, look, we just secured some funding and let's fucking go. Right.
Love it. And
yeah. And again, if you think it had anything to do with door miners, you're crazy. Like, so getting back to this press release here that happened on Monday, September 30th, talking about releasing financing, and there was categories for critical technologies that the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2024, right? So actually, if you go over and you look at it, right? So I've got this pulled up here, and this talks about the different categories where they're focused on. Because again, it's just about peeling back the layers of the onion and seeing where things are going, right? And so if you look at the covered technologies in the category where they're wanting to put funding on, autonomous mobile robots. Okay, again, like, you're crazy if you don't think that blockchain is going to be a part of this, because there's no way these machine to machine communications are going to be trusted without that security layer.
Could not agree more, man. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I was just thinking about, like, I don't know if Panasonic's doing, exactly what they're doing, but if you, one thing I just remembered right now, Jorgensen made a post, I think a couple days ago, talking about like some bullet points of items that might be discussed at high def. And one thing was Panasonic and enterprise. So just that one bullet point right there. I hope we might find out more about, how Panasonic's going to use the network. But then that extra piece of and enterprise, there's a lot of possibilities down the road. And I think that's just, I'm really curious to find out what's going to happen there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And it just goes down. I mean, aside from the autonomous mobile robots, right, where you're absolutely going to need some sort of secure layer, because you don't want somebody hacking into your robot, right? You've got cybersecurity. I've already talked ad nauseum about the fact that HGTP, their network is, the Department of Defense has already said that it was an unhackable network, right? And then you've got data fabric, again, edge computing. I've talked about that again ad nauseum. These metagraphs that are on Constellation's network are essentially edge computing networks. The metagraphs themselves are layer 1 networks, and you can put in your own custom data type. So it could be, validating the satellite data. We've got external communications, and then mesh networks. So this kind of goes back to the DTMs, right? You can actually, one of the because these things are all on a connected network themselves, you could essentially build your own mesh network of an intranet with the DTMs. So the Department of Defense could even leverage this, this type of technology to have like a network within a network, and you have secure communication going on within that network. So that is absolutely a possibility on this network.
In all of this, by the way, too, like as you're talking, I'm thinking, I mean, again, going back to watching these congressional testimonies, because I spend a lot of my time just sitting there watching this, right? It's pretty dry and boring. But one of the things they know that they're abundantly aware of is they need more public-private relationships like that back and forth, because we need enterprise. Enterprise is one of the keys to helping our country, frankly. Like, they can't do it themselves. They actually need the entrepreneurial aspect of enterprise, and that includes all of the private companies that me and you love so much, and they're going to need a network to be secure on. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, and and the list just keeps going on. We've got sensor hardware, again, the DTM or any hardware. That's the other thing, is that this network has the ability to turn any hardware into a trusted device, right? And you're not going to just put any hardware on your network. And then we have quantum computing. And as I've pointed out in that Iron Spider one sheet that they released, this technology that they have is already a quantum resistant network. It's one of the few blockchains out there that is a quantum resistant network. And for those of you that are actually interested, I'm not going to get ahead of myself too much because I have a next week I'm going to be talking with the CTO of Algorand, John Woods, about this particular topic. Algorand is another company out there that has quantum resistant technology and that is applied, but not every network is quantum resistant. Sorry, Solana bros, but your network is not quantum resistant. And for all the Bitcoin maxis, sorry, your network isn't quantum resistant either. So it's actually only a matter of time before one of these computers gets good enough to where your coins aren't safe, bro. It's just it's only a matter of time.
I wish I had a Bitcoin Barry perfect Solana knock to throw in right now, but I got nothing. He's too good.
Yeah, but this let me see right here. So this was an absolute find, and shout out to Snarch right here. He was the one who dug in, and like what was it, a couple of months ago, I think I pointed out too that there was a contract extension, and it was for Iron Spider in a different sense that I highlighted. That was outside of this. I don't know if it had a dollar amount, but that was in May when they got this contract extension. And all of this stuff can actually be searched. So you can, let me switch my tabs. Yeah, so like anybody can go to this website and search for government contracts. I mean, that's the thing about the government. All this stuff is public record, right? And
yeah, and that's we could use more eyeballs looking for this data too, because it takes a while. Like Dagnum, I know how much time you've been putting into this because I know how much time it takes to like find a little breadcrumb and then okay, let's search for that breadcrumb, etc. Or just looking through articles or looking through this every single day. And it's like you have this chance to be ahead of the curve. But it takes a lot of effort. It really does. So I appreciate all your digging. So
yeah, I mean, there's so much data out there, and not a lot of it. So a lot of it's interesting, but not a lot of it is applicable to this sense, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because they're doing, just the government in general. I mean, they're doing lots of crazy stuff, and they're researching lots of cool things that aren't necessarily applicable to what Constellation is doing. And
I'll bet
every now and again,
sorry.
Yeah, and every now and again, like I'll post about stuff like that. Like I posted about small modular reactors, and then now. I've been posting about that for years, and now all of a sudden, yeah, years, and now all of a sudden everybody's talking about it because some big account made some post about small modular reactors, and then Microsoft is buying up 3 Mile Island because they need to power their AI data centers, and it's like
I think that's in my home state. I'm in Pennsylvania, so that's cool. Yeah. And and the other thing on that note too, I mean, there's no doubt that the work the NDF is doing has eyeballs on it. I guarantee it. Like smart minds are watching what the NDF is up to. Just I mean, there's some serious research being done there. And heck, they're working with universities, etc. as well too. So yeah, right at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, I've pointed this out many times. If you really want a window into what's what's happening on Constellation's network, just look at the National DigiFoundry. This thing is a DAO, and it's a metagraph. I can pull that up here too, for anybody that's actually doubting that it's a thing. Here we go. I'm going to show this, right? So this is integration net. So NDF hasn't made it to the public mainnet yet, but I mean it's there. Like it's actually a thing. It's actually live. I showed you guys the DAG addresses, and look, here it is. National DigiFoundry, the NDT token.
That's so cool. It really is.
I mean, so like I don't know how much more real people need it to be to know that the government is like, sorry, Charles, like the government is using this stuff. This is not a conspiracy theory. And you know, this is actually happening right now, and it has been happening for quite some time. And you know, it's inevitable before a lot of this stuff bubbles up from the private side to the public side, because there is a benefit to having this on a public network versus a private network.
I absolutely 100%. And they need that interoperability overall too, as well.
Oh, talk about Intrana and the Treasury. Yeah, so here, let me share this tab. I was trying to actually get
shout out to Cody, by the way. Good guy.
yeah. Cody is another MVP out there. Everybody should follow this guy, Cody Allen. Like if you're on X, you need to follow this guy because he's out there in the trenches, posting facts all the time. He's definitely not a scroller.
Yep. I love that.
But yeah, so the NDF, National DigiFoundry, and as you can see here, the U.S. Department of Treasury is part of the National DigiFoundry, and they have a financial product tokenization working group within the National DigiFoundry, and they're working on ways to bring forth like real world assets and tokenization of like real things, right? And talking about exchange like ETFs, like bringing that on like in an actual real way that makes sense. And unfortunately in the US, we've been kind of slow on regulation. You have places like Europe that already have standards, and I really hope that that's going to change pretty soon. But within the working group, one of the chairs is Intrana. So let me see if I can bring up their website. So part of what they're doing is they're going to have like tokenized assets.
I love the energy Intrana brings too, and the knowledge. Holy cow!
Yeah. So here's Intrana, and I've talked a lot about this too. This illicit virtual asset notification system that was developed in part by the Treasury Department. So if you're doing illegal shit on chain, which a lot of people have since the very beginning, since the very block of the very first Bitcoin was mined, these people have been tracking everybody, and they gave everybody a digital rope, and these fucking people have literally been hanging themselves, and you don't know it. Like, just because a lot of these people haven't done anything yet doesn't mean that they haven't been tracking you. They have. They've been tracking fucking everything. And
you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. And not only because, I mean, I'm not saying that because of, you know, some guys trying to, I don't know, scam some small player or whatever. I'm talking about like when things become on chain, and I hope we move to that, right? Like holistically, you know, that like things will be more auditable. You'll have public auditing of you know, major moves, or like you might have a citizen journalist that's able to figure out that there were you know, some sort of illicit drug deals on a large scale. You know what I mean? Like, so the point being, it's not just trackable for, so it shouldn't be considered a fear. Like it's actually, I would consider a good thing, you know, overall. Just throwing that out there, you know. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, you want to get rid of the bad people, right? And maybe the bad people who you think are the bad people, maybe that's not even it. Maybe that's not even the head of the snake, right?
Oh, I love
so
that.
what? Yeah. So I mean, what you do is you just sit back and watch all the illegal shit going on, trying to build out this, you know, map and seeing like who all the players are. And I'm telling you, like right now, it's a matter of time before the fucking hammer comes down, and it's gonna be,
I love it.
It's gonna be nasty. You know, I've talked about, you know, the tether stuff, and I pointed that out for years. Like it's just a matter of time, and then all of a sudden now, like people don't want to fucking touch the shit, right? You have Coinbase getting rid, and I pointed that out back in May. I even talked with the good old doctor a couple of days ago about the stable coins, right? I mean, it's just a matter of time. The Wild West days of crypto are ending, and
it's not a bad thing.
And it's not a bad thing. And you know, crypto is not a bad thing. You know, I heard somebody make like some parallel with you know, how you know, like way back when they were expanding the West here, and you had all these railroad tycoons and all of the fraudulent stuff that was tied to that. I mean, there's no doubt that you know, that technology just transformed the United States, right? And it doesn't mean that it was a bad technology. It's just that there were some bad people associated with it in the beginning. It's the same thing with blockchain. I mean, blockchain is an amazing technology. You can use it for a lot of amazing things outside of cryptocurrency, but you know, there's still some bad actors in there. But they know exactly who these people are, and you know, it's just a matter of time before before the hammer comes down. But to get back to the financial product tokenization working group, which Entrana is sitting on, you know, I mean, everybody can just sort of read here, or I can, you know, read it out. But they are essentially, you know, I don't really want to get ahead of, you know, what they're doing beyond like what court has talked about publicly, but, you know, they're essentially going to have like a way to represent the dollar on chain as a dollar. Like, so when you're buying something, you're not, you know, buying something that's backed by nothing or some other you know, private entity like Tether. Tether's a private company. No, this is going to be a dollar. It's backed by the dollar.
It's almost like a dollar without the need for a bridge, you know, like it's direct. That's cool. I know nothing, but I'm just hearing what you're putting down and what they put down. Yep.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's it. It's just an expression of the dollar on chain, and you know, it's not a CBDC. It's just the dollar. It's just a digital dollar. And so Entrana is a Metagraph that's built on top of this network. And yes, they're in that financial product tokenization working group along with the US Treasury Department. And this Entrana Metagraph is going live in however many days. I don't even have the countdown thing, but they're going live on the 31st. So like a couple days after high def, which is October 24th, Entrana Metagraph is going to go live.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they what they got.
Yeah,
I really am.
Yeah. 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 So yeah. So I mean that's big news. I don't know if anybody had any more questions, or Brad, if you wanted to share some insights here. But yeah, I think this right here, this was a pretty big news, right? Just more breadcrumbs, if you will, more validation that this isn't vaporware, and the government is absolutely using this technology.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I want to add is just to be aware, like this market. I mean, you know, chart watching is one thing, and well, it's not one thing. I mean, it's a very big thing, but I mean, we're not quite there in the bull explosion mode. And I don't know. The one thing I wanted to say is just know where you want to be on bull explosion, because there's ways to make money right now in this current chop sideways situation. But I mean, I just, it gives me a very comforting feeling in certain places where I have my my assets, and Constellation's one of them, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel very confident in that. So that's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, I pointed out that, you know, Metagraphs themselves aren't even a year old. You know, Door Technologies, that was the first Metagraph that went live. It went live November of last year. So you know, that in and of itself hasn't even been around for very long. And you know, it's not going to take much to have this thing starting to generate lots of snapshots. You know, I think a couple of months ago I pointed out like one of the possibilities of utilizing this stuff. And again, going back to Panasonic and just like at random, like picking out like any one of these products. Like I pointed out that Panasonic has an automotive department, right? And you know, they make these heads-up displays, and you know, these heads-up displays are in like Hyundai and a couple of other cars that are on the road right now. And you know, you could even have something you know, super simple use case that doesn't take up that much data. I think when I did the math, like you know, you look on the here, I think I can pull it up again.
Well, while you're pulling that up, since just thinking about Panasonic, this is off the cuff and just silly to even bring up, but I remember the Panasonic brand and its power. Like back, so I'm 42 years old, and I was in like 7th or 8th grade, and I used my Christmas and birthday money. My birthday's close to Christmas, and I used that to buy a Panasonic VCR. And that was one of my favorite purchases of my life. You know, a middle schooler, I got a VCR, Panasonic branded, back in the mid 90s, I guess, early mid 90s. Pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, Panasonic makes tons of stuff. Like I had way back in the day, I had one of their plasma TVs because you know, at the time it was them or Pioneer. Well, actually, what a lot of people didn't realize is, so Pioneer was like the elite plasma TV, but what a lot of people didn't realize is Pioneer used Panasonic's displays for their plasma TVs. So if you really wanted like the poor man's Pioneer, you could just buy a Panasonic. You could just buy a Yeah, you could buy a Panasonic and save yourself like thousands of dollars, and it was essentially the same TV. So I had a Panasonic plasma TV. I loved it. Unfortunately, it got not even gonna go there on how it broke. I'm still a little sore on that, man. That thing was awesome. I love that TV. But
Post your guesses below. No.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear the laughing in the background, but yeah, somebody who will remain nameless, like set it down on the corner, and all that weight, because these things are glass, right? And so, like, all the weight, like, on the corner, as soon as it was set down, you could hear it go.
Oh,
and I'm like,
spidered out.
Yeah, and it's like, no. Because so I don't know if you guys know how plasma TVs work, but it's like a gas, right? So like once that breaks, like that's it. The TV's toast. You're not gonna replace it. And it was after they stopped making it, so it was like, oh man,
love it.
Anyway, yeah. So getting back to the door example, which I pointed out to somebody. So the door snapshots, it doesn't really take up that much data, right? It's very minimal amount of data, and I think when I went on to the door, the actual door explorer, maybe I can bring. when I brought up the door explorer itself, this thing right here, so this is the door metograph, these are the snapshots and all that stuff. So I think I went back and I counted the amount of snapshots it does a day, and it actually has a similar snapshot size as what that 𝗂𝘵𝗱𝘁 does, and it was something like 24,000 snapshots a day. And so I just used that for like rough, like stupid math, and just said, okay, so if Panasonic is using these displays, I mean, I've got no knowledge of. I'm just speculating here, and I was just trying to point out. So, like, if, for instance, these displays in the cars were used, and you had something like, like 50,000, or even cameras, because Panasonic has a camera division, right? I'm trying to remember the name of the brand that's actually the SLR cameras. But you could easily have something like 50,000 sensors all on the network. In no time. Like Door has I think 3,000 nodes, but and who knows how many Panasonic cameras are out in the wild, or how many of these cars are out in the wild. But I think it's pretty reasonable when you have a large enterprise like that you could essentially have something like I don't know, like 50 or 100,000 nodes. So here's Panasonic Connect and all of their
cameras.
and all of their different IoT stuff, right? So they have a bunch of stuff for industry solutions, healthcare, enterprise, federal, public safety. I mean, they do. Panasonic does a lot of stuff. So I think it's pretty. And here's the AV part, which I was talking about, the autonomous driving. So I think it's pretty reasonable to think that somebody like Panasonic, I think globally they're one of the largest companies in the world. I think they're Fortune 500 company. You could essentially have something like 50 or 100,000 sensors, and the amount of data that would put out to the network, and the DAG fees, because that's what most people are wanting answers on anyway, right? And it's network usage. And so you need the demand for the token, and that's going to come from something that's going to be generating a lot of demand. And so if you have something like, 50, 100,000, a couple 100,000, you can see it go out from there. And
I did it again. It's amazing stuff. Like considering, like IoT in general, in what DPIN, I guess we call it, with that essentially immutable record, right? So even if it's, I don't know, something as silly as how many people rolled up to, I don't know, last year's Super Bowl or whatever. I mean, if it's on chain, it's immutable. Or what was the weather? What was the temperature? These sensors, right? Especially cameras, when this day of AI created, like, I don't know what to believe when I'm scrolling through my feed, man, and you got somebody pumping out so-and-so did this. I don't know if they did that. Where's your proof? So the closer we get to this in every regard of our lives, I think the closer we get to just general truth too. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And like, here's all the different cameras that they make. Like I said, like this looks like a security camera. These little multi-purpose cameras. Yeah. And, I've talked, about how, blockchain is going to be, I think part of that, right? Because now you have AI generating video that's almost indistinguishable between reality. And so how do you know that like what you're seeing is actually real? And so one of the ways that you could do that is you could have these cameras, or any camera, and you could have the chip on them, right? And so that this is a real camera capturing real, like a real feed, right? And so it's validated and trusted as a real source of real data. And if this camera was ever tampered with, from a hardware level standpoint, you would know right away.
Yeah.
And the other advantage too of having things down on the hardware level is, so you're running the stuff directly locally on the chip, right? And so the consensus and all that stuff is happening on the hardware level, on the chip itself, right? So let's say this camera was in, like a grocery store or whatever, and somehow the Wi-Fi got knocked out, or Elon Musk's SpaceX whatever got knocked out, and so it didn't have an internet connection anymore. But the camera is still capturing video feed, right? And so when it comes back online to connect to the global network, how do you know that this camera wasn't messed with? How do you know somebody didn't augment the camera or inject some sort of malware into the hardware? And what you're seeing now isn't real anymore. I mean, we've seen all those spy movies, right? Like James Bond, like hacking into the camera, and then it has that loop,
big feed,
right? Right. So I mean, this would prevent that, because you would know right away that somebody was messing with your shit, right? And it would say, because that immutable chain was broken. And so then this node, this particular camera would get knocked off the network. It would say, okay, we can't trust you anymore, bro, because your chain was broken. So you're a bad node, you're a bad camera, go sit in the corner and get on Solana. Yeah. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, it could be anything, right? There's a lot of these, like robots. I mean, we talked about machine to machine communication. Robots, in automation. I mean, this stuff is taking over, and there's no stopping it. And securing these different robots is going to be super critical. I mean, can you imagine somebody mucking around in the supply chain and making bad parts? Like, what if some hacker got in and started deliberately putting in flaws into whatever it was that these robots were making? I mean, that is an absolute threat, and it could happen. But if you had a blockchain component to it, you would ensure yourself that this robot was never tampered with. I think last year we saw, what was it, Iran or somebody hacking into some water district in your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania. And what they did was they hacked into this panel, this IoT device. And so you would know right away if that was tampered with, because you're having the stuff directly on the hardware. And that, I think, is going to be the next step of distributed ledger technology. Peer-to-peer is something that they already showed. Like, I can send Brad, I can send you DAG right now, and nobody really thinks anything about it. But what people haven't seen yet is this machine-to-machine application. I mean, this is something that the Department of Defense has seen. They've shown this to the Department of Defense, and it works. And I think that this is the next evolution that the public will see, is this machine-to-machine application layer.
100%. The autonomy passing on to another autonomy, and making commerce happen on their own.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, I don't know if you had any closing thoughts, but yeah, I think this was a pretty big deal. This 500K by the Army, and and I think high def will be a little bit more insightful, and hopefully a little bit less people will scroll by and maybe take the things that this network is doing seriously. And maybe someday Charles will realize that the federal government is using Constellation's network. Maybe.
And the last thing I'll say too is that if I'm not mistaken, I think the last conversation you had was with Martin from Uphold, and boy, see, that was a great discussion. All of your discussions are great, so I'm just I'm honored to sit down with you and have a talk. So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming, and everybody, thanks for watching, and buckle up. High def is like weeks away, and I'm telling you, registration is free. If you actually have the ability to make it to high def and you're in the San Francisco Bay Area on October 24th, you won't regret going. It's going to be an experience. But outside of that, registration to high def is free. There's a virtual component to it. It doesn't cost anything. And I'm just going to say it's going to be very revealing. And, the future is very bright on this network. And that's all I'll say. And with that,
exciting. Thanks, man.
All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. And Monday? Yeah, Monday. Tune in Monday. I've got a stream with the PGF that you're not going to want to miss either. So Monday, 11 a.m. All right, Pacific time.